In today's video, we're going to deal with a very important topic that as a foreigner you may have undoubtedly be interested in and that you may have asked yourself more than once. How long will my immigration or residency application take to be resolved? And just as important, what can you do in cases this response is denied, you get a rejection? Well, to answer this question, we have to go to Law 30 of the legal regime of public administrations. This law is the one that is used so that the immigration office can make an analysis of the documents that have been submitted. This regulation establishes that the immigration office, extranjería, in this case has a maximum term of 3 months to issue a response, either favorable or rejection of your application. Caution, here it's important to note that we are talking about the immigration office and therefore we're referring to the authorization it processes. Generally, as we said, it would take 3 months and during this period you would receive a response. But what happens if during this 3-month period you haven't received any response, that is no notification from the immigration office? We have two different scenarios here. In the first scenario, if your application was for an initial residency card, after these 3 months passing without receiving a response, it would mean that your application is rejected due to a negative administrative silence. Although, as we'll see now, perhaps this isn't exactly the case nowadays. And on the other hand, if you're applying for a renewal of your residency card, that is not an initial application, but rather renewing your existing one, in that case, if 3 months pass without a response or notification, it would mean that your application would be approved through positive administrative silence. Something very important, we've seen that 80% of you who watch the videos are not subscribed. So if you're finding this content useful or if you found any of our other videos useful, consider subscribing. Why? Because the more subscribes that we get, the more videos and the more value we can provide. So if you want to be updated with the latest immigration news, updates and tips, subscribe and not miss anything. What can I do if these 3 months have passed and I haven't received a response? In this case, if you disagree with the decision because you believe that you actually met the requirements and want to dispute it, what you can do is to file an appeal. That is, after these 3 months, you would have 1 month to file an administrative appeal or 2 months to initiate a contentious administrative appeal, requesting that the administration reviews your file because you truly believe that you met the requirements and you should be granted your residency card. However, the best course of action is probably to wait, and initiating this appeal is not the most appropriate option nowadays because it's very common to find cases where, for example, a foreigner has applied for, let's say, arraigo. These 3 months of waiting have passed and they haven't received a response, so their application would supposedly be rejected. But then they find that in month number 4, 5 or even 6, they finally receive a favorable response. Why? Because the immigration office may be overloaded, they are processing applications as best as they can, and it's common for them to take longer than these 3 months that they supposedly have as a deadline since they are full of files to process. Even though these 3 months have passed, it's possible that you could still receive a favorable response today. The most important thing then will be to look at the current processing times that the immigration office in your city where you're submitting your application is taking to resolve each procedure, and use that time frame to determine whether it's worth initiating an appeal or waiting a bit longer. Also, another thing you should keep in mind is that these processing times will vary greatly depending on the office where you apply for your residency. That is, the immigration office processes applications in order of arrival. The first to arrive will be the first they'll begin to process. The downside is that you can only submit your application at the office that corresponds to your address, according to where you are registered as a resident. Everything we've seen so far in this video refers to the immigration office and applications under the general regime. But what happens if you apply for a permit under the entrepreneur's law? In that case, since it's not the immigration office who processes applications, but the UGE, la Unidad de Grandes Empresas, the timeframes change radically. Here, the maximum processing time is 20 business days at most, and after this period, if you haven't received a response, the resolution would be favorable, positive due to positive administrative silence. If you apply for an entrepreneur visa, a highly qualified professional visa, or a digital nomad visa, for example, the process is much more agile in terms of application processing. And finally, how can I speed up this process? As we've mentioned, the immigration office issues resolutions in order of arrival. So we can really do anything, not you, not a lawyer, not anyone, to make it faster. You cannot put pressure on them. However, one piece of advice we give you is to make sure that you meet all requirements in detail and that you prepare a perfect application, because meeting the requirements will ensure your application isn't rejected, so that they can work faster, and this will help you get a faster response at the end. If you need help with managing your complete application so that you can guarantee a success in that case, send us an email at info@balcelesgroup.com. Our team of immigration lawyers is more than ready to help you. And remember, if you haven't done so, subscribe and see you in the next one.